You really think all this pageantry means something? That's what Colonel Mason Briggs demanded, right in the middle of Wellington Barracks parade ground. But Sergeant Thomas Reid's response? He didn't argue back. He didn't raise his voice. And what happened next proved exactly why tradition trumps rank every single time. Want to know how this American officer got schooled by British silence? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. The morning after a London rain always feels different, doesn't it? When the air's been washed clean and everything's got this sharp, crisp edge to it. That's exactly how Wellington Barracks looked the day Colonel Mason Briggs rolled up. Puddles still catching glimpses of sky on the parade ground, stone walls glistening like they'd been polished overnight. By 8 in the morning, the usual rhythm of military life was already humming along. Boots on stone, voices echoing off ancient walls. The kind of routine that's been happening here for, just a couple hundred years or so. But there was something different in the air that morning. A tension you couldn't quite put your finger on. The kind that spreads through military ranks without anyone actually saying a word. And it all came down to one name, Colonel Mason Briggs. This guy wasn't just any American officer. Picture this. Combat ribbons stretched across his chest like a road map of every hot zone he'd ever stepped into. Iraq, Czech, Afghanistan, multiple tours, the kind of battlefield resume that makes other soldiers straighten up when he walks into a room. But here's the thing about Colonel Briggs. He had zero patience for what he called dog and pony shows. His personal motto, respect is earned, not inherited. Sounds good on paper, right? Except when you're dealing with traditions that have been around since before America even existed. The man stepped through those barracks gates like he owned the place, flanked by 2 aides who were probably wondering what they'd signed up for. You could see it in his eyes. This whole place was just too neat, too quiet, too proper for his liking. This where the real soldiers hide when it rains? That's what he mutters to his aide, half joking but not really. And that's when he meets Sergeant Thomas Reid. Now, Reid isn't your typical sergeant. Mid-30s, tall enough to make you look up, wearing those ceremonial blues like they were tailored by God himself. But the most striking thing about him, that calm. Not the forced kind you see when someone's trying too hard. This was the real deal, the kind of stillness that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. See, Reid comes from a military family that goes back generations. His grandfather fought at Normandy, his father did 2 tours in the Falklands, and Reid himself. He's got medals he doesn't talk about and scars that tell their own stories. The kind of soldier who's seen enough action to know that the loudest guy in the room isn't always the strongest. "This is where we guard the Queen's legacy, sir," Reid says, voice level, professional. Briggs gives this little scoff. Hope she appreciates all the ironing. Looks like half your army's made of starch. And Reid, he doesn't even blink, just keeps walking. That's when Briggs starts testing him. "Let me guess," he says, stopping in his tracks. No speaking, no smiling, no thinking. Still nothing from Reid, just that steady pace, hands behind his back, spine straight as a rifle barrel. Briggs steps closer. "So, tell me something, Sergeant. You ever carried a real weapon? Or is that bayonet just for the tourists?" Now that got Reid's attention. His eyes flick toward Briggs, just for a second, then straight ahead again. And somehow that tiny moment of acknowledgement unsettled Briggs more than any comeback ever could. They move inside to this officers' gallery. You know the type. All dark wood and oil paintings, brass plaques catching the light from tall windows. The kind of place where you can practically feel history pressing in on you from all sides. Briggs walks through it like a man at a museum who's already late for lunch. "So this is what glory looks like in frame form," he mutters, stopping at some painting of a Coldstream officer charging into battle. "Nice brush strokes. Ever been in anything like that, Sergeant?" Reid takes a moment. "I served 2 tours in Helmand," he says, matter of fact. "My section lost 3 men in a single afternoon." Briggs glances over, maybe expecting some emotion, some crack in the armour. And now you hold rifles like props. Bit of a come down, isn't it? Reid looks at him. Not defensively, just looks. We serve where we're ordered, sir. No job is beneath a soldier. Oh, that hit a nerve. You can see it in Briggs's jaw, the way it tightens just a fraction. No disrespect, he says, which always means he's about to be totally disrespectful. But where I come from, a soldier's worth is measured in sweat, risk, and battlefield outcomes. I've lost men too, and I never once saluted a flag because someone told me it would look nice on camera. Reid nods once, then glances back at that painting. In my regiment, he says quietly, we salute the dead, whether the cameras are watching or not. Briggs frowns. You really think all this pageantry means something? The marching, the polished buttons, the silence? It does, Reid says, to the families watching, to the nations we host, to the soldiers buried without fanfare. And that's when Briggs realises something. This isn't just theatre to these guys. This is sacred ground. But he's not ready to admit it yet. Cut to the next day. The drill square behind Wellington Barracks. Afternoon light cutting through grey clouds like God's own spotlight. Half a unit of guardsmen lined up for practice, rifles slung, boots clicking in formation so tight it sounds like one giant soldier moving. Briggs is there, sunglasses pushed up on his head, arms folded like a critic at opening night. You call this training? He mutters. Reid, standing nearby, turns his head slightly. Discipline is training, Colonel. Repetition is mastery. Repetition is how you build robots, not war fighters. Briggs starts moving toward the practicing guards, shaking his head like a disappointed teacher. Straight backs, clean turns, polished rifles. All good for show. But show doesn't win wars, Sergeant. A young private, kid can't be more than 19, makes the tiniest misstep. Nothing major, just a fraction off in timing. His cheeks flush slightly under the bearskin, but he doesn't break formation. Briggs pounces on it like a hawk on a field mouse. There! You see that? He hesitated. That'll get someone killed in a combat zone. But here's what Briggs doesn't see, the way the other guards subtly adjust. Closing any gap, maintaining the line. It's not about perfection, it's about unity. That's the part outsiders never get. Reid steps forward, voice quiet but firm. This isn't a combat zone, sir. And that man isn't hesitating out of fear. He's recalibrating to preserve cohesion. That's part of the drill. Cohesion. Briggs actually chuckles. That your word for cosmetic unity? It's our word for staying alive, sir, even on parade. Now Briggs is getting in his face, toe to toe with Reid. You think I'm here to be impressed by uniforms and choreography? No, sir, Reid replies, not backing down an inch. I think you're here to understand that not all strength looks the same. You don't like me much, do you, Sergeant? Reid's answer comes without hesitation. I don't have to like you, Colonel. I have to represent this regiment. That's what I'm doing. Briggs leans in, voice dropping low. Well, here's an order then. I want to see you do this parade circuit tomorrow. Lead it. Show me what all this tradition looks like up close. And try not to blink when the real soldiers are watching. Reid pauses for just a second, then gives the faintest nod. As you wish, sir. But there's something in his eyes now, not defiance, not anger, just resolve. Because what the American officer doesn't get yet is this. Tomorrow won't be a performance. It'll be an education. Morning breaks with that London chill that gets into your bones, the kind that makes your breath hang in the air like smoke signals. By 8 o'clock, the drill square's already buzzing with energy. Rows of Coldstream guards standing in formation, so perfect it looks like someone drew them on the ground with a ruler. No music yet, just silence and steel. Then you hear them, American boots on stone. Colonel Briggs strides onto the edge of the square with his 2 aides, hands behind his back. No notes, no clipboard, just pure scrutiny. Sergeant Reid emerges from the shadows of the colonnade a moment later. No coat despite the cold scarlet tunic buttoned to the throat, white gloves so clean they practically glow. He walks the perimeter like a man checking on family before dinner. Briggs leans over to one of his aides. Let's see if he marches like he lectures. A whistle blows, and then magic happens. Look, I've seen plenty of military drills, but what follows isn't just training. It's poetry, written in steel and scarlet. Rifles rise in perfect arcs. Boots hit stone like thunder rolling through mountains. Every turn, every halt, every spin synchronized down to the millisecond. At the centre of it all is Reid, leading with this presence that doesn't demand attention. It commands it. Briggs watches in silence. For once in his life, he's got nothing to say. After 10 minutes of absolute perfection, Reid brings it all to a halt with one sharp command. Company, halt! The entire unit freezes mid-step, boots planting in exact harmony, no straggler, no sound. Reid pivots and marches forward to stand before the colonel. He offers no smile, no challenge, just a crisp salute. Briggs tilts his head. Impressive choreography, he says. But would you hold formation under fire? Reid doesn't flinch. We already have, sir. Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia. Every man here has seen deployment. And you think this? Briggs gestures to the soldiers still holding formation. Prepares them for that? Reid looks over his shoulder, then back. No, sir, that prepares them for this. What's this? Ceremony, stillness, standing in front of thousands of people, cameras, dignitaries, all while ignoring the itch in your nose, the cramp in your leg, the scream in your shoulders. That kind of restraint. It doesn't come from ego, it comes from purpose. Briggs doesn't respond right away. For the first time since arriving, he's actually thinking instead of reacting, because suddenly he's looking at men who don't need to prove anything. They already did their proving in places with names like Helmand and Basra, and they're still standing here, still silent, still strong. Fast forward to the afternoon. The ceremonial unit's back at barracks after their rotation at Horse Guards. Most of them are wiped, faces flushed from cold, shoulders sore from hours of holding position under bearskins that weigh more than your average backpack. Sergeant Reid walks into the mess hall, probably thinking he's done with confrontations for the day. Wrong. Colonel Briggs is waiting by the back wall, coffee going cold beside him. His aides have vanished, leaving just a few soldiers grabbing late lunch and this weird tension hanging in the air like steam. Got a second, Sergeant? Briggs asks. Reid doesn't flinch. Of course, sir. Briggs starts walking in a slow circle around him, voice low and casual. So I've been thinking about this culture of yours, the saluting, the silence, the pageantry. He stops in front of Reid, and I wonder if maybe it's all just a performance. A few soldiers look up from their trays. Reid tilts his head slightly. Respectfully, sir, our discipline is not for spectacle. It's for those we serve. But who are you serving when you ignore a direct greeting? A handshake, let's say, from an allied officer? Reid's voice hardens just a fraction. If it's during a moment of protocol, then no one, because that moment doesn't belong to the living. Briggs leans in. So what if I stepped into your line, said your name during a parade? Would you just pretend I wasn't there? Yes, sir, that would be the duty. And if I called you a coward? The entire room goes dead silent. Reid looks him right in the eye, calm, level, unshakable. Then I would remember that I'm here to represent the Crown, not myself. Long silence. Briggs was fishing for a crack, for something to validate his assumptions about ceremonial soldiers being soft. But Reid doesn't crack. Instead, he asks, Would you like to inspect our live fire range, Colonel? We're qualifying tomorrow. You're welcome to attend. Briggs squints, caught off guard. You lot actually shoot? Reid gives the ghost of a smile. We don't just stand still, sir. We aim still too. Briggs turns to leave, muttering something under his breath. But as he reaches the door, Reid's voice stops him cold. One more thing, sir. Briggs looks back. I hope, if the time ever comes, that someone's willing to stand still for you, even when you're no longer around to see it. No anger, no threat, just a quiet truth. And for the first time, Colonel Briggs has no reply. The next morning brings rain. Not that gentle British drizzle everyone jokes about. This is proper rain, the kind that hammers windows and turns the parade ground into a mirror of puddles. By 7:30, the guards are already gearing up for another ceremony at St James's Palace. Reid's in the armoury, checking rifles as they come off the racks. His gloves are damp, his bearskin already collecting water droplets. Then a junior officer bursts in with a message, marked immediate. Reid takes it, steps into the corridor, opens it carefully. The message is brief. Colonel Mason Briggs will accompany today's procession as embedded liaison. He will walk alongside the Coldstream column. Per diplomatic protocol, you are to offer visual acknowledgement if he addresses you directly. Reid reads it twice, folds it, slides it into his tunic pocket. No protest, no questions. He just goes back to checking rifles. Half an hour later, they're moving through the palace's west entryway. Tourists pressed against the gates like kids at a candy store window, umbrellas everywhere, phones out, trying to catch the perfect shot. The band's playing that slow, steady march that gets into your bones, boots falling in perfect time like a heartbeat you can hear. And there's Briggs, in a dark trench coat over his US uniform, walking alongside the column. You can see him trying to match their pace, but he's slightly off, like someone trying to dance to music they don't quite understand. He doesn't speak at first, but Reid can feel him watching. They round the northern side of the courtyard, passing a pair of elderly veterans who remove their hats in salute. Reid nods, barely in return. That's when Briggs moves in closer and murmurs, just loud enough to carry, "Let's see if protocol's stronger than pride, Sergeant." Still raining, Reid doesn't move, doesn't break formation, doesn't look his way. Briggs waits, then waits some more, finally. "I'm speaking to you, soldier." Nothing. And behind the gates, someone lifts a phone. Reid's jaw stays locked, eyes fixed ahead, the salute he gives toward the memorial, flawless. When they get back to barracks, Reid's called into the adjutant's office. Rain still dripping off his tunic. "I received the directive, sir," he says before the adjutant speaks, "and I chose not to acknowledge because the order contradicted standing ceremonial code." The officer leans back in his chair. "Colonel Briggs made a complaint." "I expect he did." Silence, and then, "And I informed him that if a Coldstream guardsman ever broke form during a state rotation for any reason other than fire or death, it would be me facing inquiry, not you." Reid allows the faintest nod. "Thank you, sir." Because right there, discipline held the line against rank, against pressure, against the easy way out. And the guard remained unbroken. 3 days later, different scene entirely. Sun's out, shadows stretching across Wellington Barracks like long fingers. The parade ground's empty, but there's tension thick as soup in the officers' wing. Small conference room, Reid's been summoned. Across from him, the adjutant, some civilian from diplomatic protocol, and Colonel Mason Briggs. Briggs looks different without the rain and the audience. Just a square-jawed officer in dress uniform, arms folded, jaw tight. "Sergeant," the adjutant begins, "you're not here under investigation. You're here to clarify." Briggs steps forward. "I've come across my fair share of proud uniforms, but yours, it mistakes silence for strength." Reid meets his gaze, steady. "And yours mistakes noise for authority." The room freezes. The civilian looks alarmed. The adjutant just watches. Briggs continues. "You disrespected a direct diplomatic engagement." "I upheld my nation's ceremonial doctrine," Reid fires back. "You stepped into a protected tradition, Colonel, not a battlefield." Briggs' face reddens. "I'm a guest of the Crown. That silence—" "Was not for you," Reid interrupts. "That salute was for the men who never came home. You wanted acknowledgement. What you interrupted was remembrance." Briggs gets closer. "You could have nodded, blinked, moved your eyes." "If I had," Reid says, voice low, "then what we stand for would mean less, and I won't dishonour thousands buried beneath our flag just to soothe a visiting ego." Dead silence. Then the adjutant clears his throat. "Colonel Briggs," he says calmly, "the Coldstream Guards answer to protocol older than either of our governments. Sergeant Reid did not break formation. He did not disobey an order. He did not disrespect you. He simply did his duty to the letter. Briggs doesn't respond immediately. Finally, a small nod, tight, almost grudging. Then I misjudged the meaning of that silence. Reid offers no gloating, no smile, just the faintest incline of his head. A lot of people do, sir. Briggs heads for the door, pauses, looks back. You really believe the uniform matters that much? Reid looks him square in the eye. It matters because it doesn't bend, even when someone powerful leans on it. Briggs leaves without another word. Door clicks shut. Room feels lighter somehow. The adjutant stands. Dismissed, Sergeant. Clean salute, clean exit, and that's how you do it. Without shouting, without breaking, without giving an inch. So here's the question. Would you have held your ground like Sergeant Reid, knowing a foreign officer was breathing down your neck? And how often do we mistake quiet strength for weakness, just because it doesn't scream for attention? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and if this story showed you what real discipline looks like, hit that like button. Seriously, it helps more than you know. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss tomorrow's Royal Guard story. And if you know someone who still thinks these soldiers are just for show, share this video. Let them see what honour actually looks like when it's tested. Check out these other Royal Guard stories popping up right now. They'll blow your mind. See you tomorrow, same time, with another story that proves tradition doesn't bow to anyone. It just stands there always.